Hello and welcome to the classroom. In this lesson, we're going to explore ethics in relation to touch therapy, focusing on dual and sequential relationships. These relations can be complicated, and understanding how to navigate them is essential for safe and professional practice. First, we'll talk about dual relationships. So, what are dual relationships? This occurs when professional and social roles overlap. For example, when a practitioner has both a therapeutic role and another type of relationship with the same person, like being their friend, their neighbor, or even their family member. These overlaps can create blurred boundaries. In the early 20th century, concerns about dual relationships were mostly focused on doctors treating their family members. By the 1940s and 50s, psychology took a stricter stance, creating rules to avoid dual relationships altogether. Then in the 1960s, the human potential movement loosened attitudes a bit, swinging the pendulum toward a more permissive approach. And as we moved into the 1970s and 80s, reports of sexual impropriety among therapists and clients pushed researchers to look deeper into the risks of dual relationships. By the late 1980s, massage therapy was one of the first fields to consistently raise concerns about these boundaries. Finally, in the 1990s, a more balanced view emerged, recognizing that while dual relationships can be risky, they are not always harmful if handled ethically. Next, we'll talk about the range of dual relationships. Dual relationships can take many forms, including socializing, group affiliations, friendships, family ties, financial arrangements, social media connections, dating, sexual involvement, or even teacher-student relationships. Each type comes with its own set of risks and boundary challenges. The first we'll talk about today is socializing. Meeting a client in a social setting, like a party or a community event, extends the professional relationship into a personal one, and this gives both people more knowledge of each other outside the therapy room, which can shift the boundaries of their professional connection. Second, we'll talk about group affiliation. This is when a client and practitioner share membership in a group, such as church, club, fitness class. It can complicate the relationship. If the group experience turns negative or overly personal, it may feel awkward or even unsafe to continue the professional relationship. Moving on to our third group is friendships. Friendship requires equality, but professional relationships are built on a power differential. Balancing both roles at once is difficult and risky because you cannot be both a practitioner and an equal friend without blurring lines. Now, as we move into family, of all the dual relationships, this is probably my least favorite. Family members often expect special treatment when they are also clients. They may push boundaries or assume that rules don't apply to them in the same way, which can put a strain on the professional relationship. Many times, family members think that you should do things for them for free, and you definitely have to set clear boundaries with that. Financial arrangements. Financial dual relationships are common in three forms: bartering services, where you would trade, exchanging healthcare services, or hiring each other for employment. Now, while these are not inherently unethical, these arrangements add complexity and can easily cause misunderstanding if not handled carefully. For example, with bartering, if good record keeping is not had, then one party could feel that the other was taking advantage if they didn't have an equal trade in the service, and then it would definitely ruin the relationship. Social media is definitely a tricky one, and it can blur personal and professional lines quickly once you gain access to someone else's beliefs or opinions or personal life. That can change how the professional relationship feels, especially if those differences are strong. Dating. Dating a client is considered inappropriate, and if a practitioner and a client do develop interest in each other, the professional relationship must end before dating begins. This helps protect both parties from blurred boundaries. Now, of course, different states have different laws according to what those time limits are. It's always a good practice to check with your state's revised code and make sure, but otherwise, this is a no go. Sexual relationships with clients. First of all, it is always inappropriate and sometimes even illegal. A practitioner to have a sexual relationship with a client crosses clear ethical lines and should never happen. Our last bullet point when discussing dual relationships is with students. Dual relationships can also coexist between students and teachers, but when boundaries blur, it can impact not only the individuals involved, but also the entire class or the faculty dynamic. It's also important to discuss the benefits of dual relationships. When managed carefully, dual relationships can offer benefits. Practitioners who set and maintain clear boundaries can navigate multidimensional connections while still protecting the professional relationship. These benefits include building trust, fostering deeper understanding, and strengthening community ties. But the risks are significant. Dual relationships can shift power dynamics, blur intimacy boundaries, and create confusion about consent, accountability, and maturity levels. That's why evaluating the potential risks is essential before entering into or continuing any dual relationship. Next, we'll move on to sequential relationships. Sequential relationships happen when one role ends completely before a new role begins. An example would be a practitioner and former client deciding to pursue a personal or romantic relationship after the professional one has ended. A great example of this would be dating a former client. Dating a former client requires careful consideration, so ask yourself, what's at stake? What are the complicating factors? What guidelines or boundaries do I need to follow to navigate this ethically? Even after the professional role ends, there are still risks. So, when in doubt, seek supervision. Talking to someone outside the situation gives perspective and helps you see the bigger picture more clearly. Supervision also provides accountability and guidance and is never a bad idea. There are conditions for success with dual and sequential relationships. These relationships can sometimes work if both parties clearly understand the complexities and risks. Responsibility is equally shared for establishing and maintaining boundaries. There is mutual consent on all aspects of the relationship, and the practitioner fully educates the client about the risk involved. Although we have discussed in this lesson about the relationships between teacher and student, it is important to mention specifically the special case of schools. Teachers and students must be especially cautious. Any dual relationship here affects not just the individuals but the entire class or faculty group. Boundaries are essential in school environments to protect fairness, respect, and professionalism. And there are definitely some best practices to consider in all of that. Best practices include considering non fraternization policies at your school, clearly stating and enforcing professional boundaries, and in sequential relationships, communicating openly and effectively to manage transitions. These guidelines help protect both the practitioners and the clients. So, in conclusion, dual and sequential relationships are complex and they can be risky, but with awareness, boundaries, and clear communication, they can sometimes be navigated ethically. The key is protecting the therapeutic relationship, maintaining professionalism, and always putting client safety and well being first. So, I hope that you have learned a lot from today's lesson. I thank you for joining me here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.